Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Alvarez and Marcel live webcast on the generative AI impact on PE, driving portfolio value creation and due diligence. My name is Julianne Pressman. I'm a managing director here at A&M, and I will be moderating this panel today. First, a few housekeeping rules. All listeners are muted and off video. However, we do have a Q&A feature that you can use to ask questions through our time together. Our plan is to go for 30 minutes, and we will try to get to these questions before we close the session. Finally, please allow about a 3 to 5 second delay as we pass the mic from speaker to speaker. So let's get started. We have 3 goals today. First, to discuss the evolution and big picture of AI, positioning generative AI as the latest advancement. Second is to address how PE funds can use generative AI pre and post acquisition, and to assess your current position and that of your portfolio companies in the AI journey. And third, to present the practical aspects of generative AI implementation using a crawl, walk, run approach. So let's start with Bob Ghaffori. Bob, is generative AI the latest advancement, continuum of previous technologies, or a new concept?
Thanks, Julianne. Well, let me just give you 2 seconds on me and my background and Amplify, and then I'll walk through the elements of Julianne's question. Just for context, I have started 3 AI analytics companies and sold those, and then I helped launch Accenture Digital and their advanced analytics group within Accenture Digital. And now I have, over the last year, we have built Amplify, which is the AI-powered digital transformation group inside of A&M. And within Amplify, we have an AI platform, different types of AI there, including generative, machine learning, foundational data and analytics. We have a private generative AI tool set, and we have 9 pre-built AI apps to address certain use cases and really get to value quickly. So Julianne, as we talked to CEOs in the last year, and we had conversations with approximately 100 on this topic, on AI, there are really 3 things that came up that they were interested in that resonated with me, and there were themes across them. And I'll talk about those, and then I'll talk about this maturity model and the differentiation between prior generations of AI and generative AI. The 3 things that really came up and resonated, first was help us. Right now, the cloud technologies, other technologies that are out there like Snowflake, which is a kind of a modern data environment, lets you share data in a private way, help us consolidate our data and provide insights to all of the leaders across our business so they can make better decisions. So help me consolidate my data and make better decisions. The second thing that we heard was help me use AI to automate and optimize my business. How do we do that? How do we do that in a capital efficient way? How do I improve the efficiency through automation? But also on the optimization side, how do I improve customer experience? If we're investing $200-300 million in media, can I use AI and machine learning to simulate different responses, optimize that spend without impacting sales? So the second thing was really using AI for automation, optimization. And the third one was the world really changed with generative AI and the launch of ChatGPT in November. What impact does that have, and how can that accelerate use cases around automation, optimization, decision-making across my business? And then secondarily, what potential impact does that have when I go out to market and try and win business? Is it going to impact the profit pools from a competitive perspective of my business? The AI maturity model you see in front of you really has a bunch of components. And so at the front, the basic, and we've been doing this for 25 years, I did it at Walmart over 20 years ago. What we've been doing is trying to consolidate all the things that you see on your receipt, on the web, Facebook, Instagram, etc., into a customer data store. And that's been going on for a long time. And you see that expanding with third-party data, second-party data, and then all of the unstructured data the generative AI is able to analyze. So that's at the foundation. As you move up that, I mean, at the foundation, you have dashboards and descriptive analytics. So really looking historically at what happened. From there, you have predictive, diagnostic, and prescriptive analytics. What do we mean by that? When you go into a Amazon environment or you log into your Amazon account, you see a whole bunch of recommendations, and that's a prescriptive analytic environment. And then finally, you have generative AI, and generative AI is different because it's democratized access to AI to everybody. Anyone can you access it, and you don't have to have a machine learning degree. And the big differentiator is that it looks at massive amounts of unstructured data, video, content, etc. It can decipher that, and it can basically address very differentiated tasks. So it can be a set of recipes for something you want to cook. It can be how you upsell your sales folks. It can be how you write a piece of code. So it has a broad set of tasks where the prior generations of AI were very focused on one thing, like optimizing price or media investments or how you optimize supply chain. So that gives you kind of a sense of the different elements, from data to descriptive analytics to predictive and machine learning based analytics, and to this new area, which is fundamentally different around generative AI. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Jeffrey Klein, who's going to give you an overview of our methodology.
Thank you, Bob. Let me first bring Jeffrey into the conversations. Jeffrey Klein, our Managing Director of STS. Jeffrey, how does generative AI impact PE funds from a value creation and investment assessment perspective? And how can PE funds use generative AI pre-acquisition and post-acquisition?
It's a great question, JP. You know, I have responsibility for our M&A services practice, which leads a lot of our operational IT and merger integration related diligence. I also have responsibility for our STS practice, which is an industry practice, which is a performance improvement practice. So, you know, as we think about the PE life cycle, and we think about the first step in most situations is its diligence. And, you know, we were very focused on coming up with a good use case for an AI tool. And we were looking for something where there was a significant amount of unstructured data, the need to organize it quickly, large amounts of documents, open-ended questions. And we said, you know what? The best use case we have is a diligence-based tool. So about 9 months ago, we set about building our own AI tool based on OpenAI and a number of other technologies. And we started loading that tool with approximately 10 years of diligence reports to try to train the engine. Now, my partner, Anil Kumar, will talk a little bit about the true definition of training, but for the purposes of our conversation, we loaded up reports, we worked on our questions, our prompt engineering, and we tested the engine. I think it's important for individuals to understand that, generally speaking, just logging onto ChatGPT and asking it questions is not the same as taking an OpenAI engine, connecting a series of tools, developing a training model, working on your prompt engineering, which is a fancy way of saying how you ask questions, and developing a real model is, you know, an important part of this. But to date, we've used that tool on over 50 diligences and really have a sense of what the capabilities and the limitations of the tools are, at least based on the current technology. And as part of the diligence process for sort of standard stock asset buy-side diligences, we're generally doing an AI readiness assessment and looking at the various areas during the operational due diligence and saying, what are the opportunities potentially for AI? And they have a couple of simple hallmarks. You know, situations where you have large groups of people doing semi-repetitive tasks where they're asked open-ended questions is an excellent AI opportunity. Also situations where you have large swaths of data that you need to move through quickly to move from the sort of data collection process, which is often very time consuming, the data sorting and organizing process, sometimes called information, to drawing insights. So during the general buy-side diligences, we're able to look at situations like that in various companies and consider those potential opportunities. We also get involved in a lot of operational diligence where there's a very strong PI or value creation thesis. And what we like to do is help our clients see where generative AI can potentially be part of the value creation process. Now, this is diligence, so it's an outside or semi-outside in, so there are certain limitations. Often we're able to take those theses and move them into the post-acquisition where we can do actual roadmaps, etc. More often than not, though, our clients are calling us when they're looking at general performance improvement opportunities and they're theorizing where could the opportunity be. And those are opportunities for us to come in and help look at those opportunities. Bob was talking a little bit about the Amplify proof of concept environment that we have, which allows us to rapidly prototype some of these ideas and see whether or not they'll actually work. And then we have the opportunity to move on to implementation and take that environment and actually scale it up. The real message here is that generative AI is not something to be afraid of. It's certainly not something to sit on the sidelines for. But when you're moving through your sort of deal life cycle, your transaction life cycle, during the diligence process is a good time to take a look at what the potential is. Where you have heavy value creation deals, AI is definitely a tool that can be brought into play. And when you're looking at value creation and process improvement and preparing for exit, saying that you have no plan, you have no idea where AI may be appropriate is probably not the best strategy at this point in time. So part of what we want to encourage our clients to do is step in and take advantage of this very disruptive technology without fear and without concern that there'll be no opportunity for value. Thank you, JP.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And now over to Anil Kumar. So Anil, what are some tactical ways that PE funds and portfolio companies can adopt and implement generative AI?
Thanks, JP. I lead the generative AI initiatives within our private equity performance improvement practice. There are three macro state of the market perspective I want to mention before I walk through our crawl, walk, run approach to implementing generative AI. First, the technology is still at a very early stage, but evolving rapidly. Over the next few months, we will see domain-specific large language models, advanced tool sets, and a lot more technology vendors. We are just in the first innings of a long game, so it's important to start simple and avoid taking on complex use cases. Second, the cost of experimentation is low, so one thing you cannot do is not experiment. OpenAI, Google, Microsoft provide multiple tools that have made it easy to experiment and implement basic file question answering, information extraction, and sentiment analysis. The key is to get your feet wet so you're ready to jump in when there are domain-specific large language models available. And third, the power of generative AI comes from its ability to handle large volumes of unstructured data and files. This is in contrast with data analytics and machine learning implementation, which requires you to put in a meaningful amount of time and effort in structuring the input and structuring the output. So the goal should be to identify high impact, highly feasible use cases that rely on files and unstructured data. 80% of enterprise data is unstructured. A lot of the enterprise intelligence is embedded in Excel, Word, SharePoint, knowledge base, customer logs, incident reports, and so forth. Generative AI unlocks that. Employees become data scientists as they move from gathering data to asking questions against the data that generative AI has gathered for them. So with that as a backdrop, we recommend a crawl, walk, run approach, which is what we use to run generative AI value creation planning workshops for our PE clients. And there are 3 steps to that. Step 1, which is the crawl phase, is start experimenting. Get your feet wet before you jump into the pool. identify operational use cases that rely on manual processes and files. Which one of those lend themselves easily to generative AI and can have a high impact in terms of efficiency improvement and or cost savings? What is the effort required to implement some of the generative AI technologies around question answering, sentiment analysis, information extraction, and so forth? Second, start with prompt engineering. This is where you teach the model to take on a specific role, give it additional context and several examples, and that improves the quality of the response. This is really in the crawl phase. And a focus on narrow AI. By that I mean pockets of opportunities. Don't boil the ocean, look for pockets of small opportunities. And once you have done that, then we move to the next phase. You start implementing proof of concept. So Amplify has built a strong AI framework and a proof of concept, a sandbox environment, which we use to rapidly test ideas and initial use cases, and then build up on top of that. So once you've done that groundwork and build a foundation, you move to the next phase, which is the walk phase, which you take on more complex use cases. Think anomaly detection, think inventory analysis for operational companies, think more complex, if this, then that, and a series of those analysis. These require what's called chain of thought programming, a multi-step where you break down a complex problem into multiple steps, and if needed, call multiple models, more than one large language model for that. And at this stage, what you're doing really is starting to implement enterprise-wide pilot projects and get many of the stakeholders involved. And the third stage is the run stage, where you start integrating generative AI across as many internal workflows as possible and move your staff from data gathering to validation and insight generation. This is where you start focusing more on data analysis, quantitative assessments, be a lot more multi-model, use domain-specific models, and then start implementing training and fine-tuning using hundreds and thousands of examples. So a couple of things to note. I think it will be very important to take a process view, not a technology view of generative AI. Taking a process view enables you to be more efficiency focused and look at productivity improvements and levers, and then cost savings much more closely. And it's going to be very important to partner with operationally focused firms initially versus technology implementers. Technology implementers may want you to implement technology for technology's sake, but you need to take really an operational or a process view, focus on efficiency metrics and monitoring. So in summary, you need to take a crawl, walk, run approach, starting with building simple use cases and gradually progressing to more complex use cases and technologies. With that, let me pass to JP.
Thanks, Anil. So now let's look at how we're using Gen AI in practice. Bob, can you give us an overview of a recent case where you used AI and other tools to positively impact company growth? And then I'll ask you to please tee up Anil to discuss the use of these tools for process improvement.
Thanks, Julianne. What I'm going to do is talk about a use case around customer experience and a digital concierge, and then I'll hand it over to Anil, and he's going to switch over and talk about how we improve efficiency, operational improvement inside of an organization with a second use case. Recently, Bill Gates said that the first person to train a foundational model and create a digital assistant that anyone can use is going to, reap a lot of the value or in this whole kind of shift to generative AI. And what we've seen in the last, and it's happening almost exponentially in the last 6 months, is that there's been a number of different types of digital concierge in retail and travel, in fast casual and cooking that have appeared that use, as Anil was saying, fine-tune the parameters and use external data to kind of recommend a set of choices based on the information that comes back from the large language model. And for a European travel company, and I'm kind of masking the information here because this is an active client of ours. For a European travel company, what was very apparent is that even if you went into the generalized ChatGPT environment and I said, hey, I want to take my family, my 3 kids and my wife to Disney World for 7 days, and I want to see these parks and I want to go to these locations and have food at these restaurants, what comes back is broad, and in a lot of cases it can hallucinate. It can be kind of inaccurate information. And so what we did in a 4-week period is we created a digital concierge that takes structured data, so like information like your rewards information, intent that you share about preferences you have around food, you like Chinese, you don't like Mexican, the types of hotels you like to stay at, etc. And very quickly we combined the information from that structured and numerical data and machine learning around that and recommendations with the APIs and the large language model to come up with a set of recommendations that you could actually book and activate based on the feedback you get. So in that example, instead of the information going straight to ChatGPT, it goes into this Amplify private generative AI environment. We actually combine the information that comes back about the elements of your trip that you'd see in your kind of generalized ChatGPT result set. And then you could see almost at every step in that process, there'd be a recommendation around a restaurant, a flight booking, car rental, Uber, other elements. And really what that does is there's three big outcomes that delivers for a company. One, it creates efficiency in how those individuals, either a call center or anyone's interacting with that company, right? So there's less effort and there's more efficiency because they're not doing those lookups on their own. Second, it improves the customer experience that individual has. And when people have great customer experience, you have a third outcome, which is the lifetime value of those customers increases. So they come back and they continue to revisit. And so that happened in 4 weeks. It was a quick sprint, generative AI sprint. And the important thing there is we combined different types of algorithms to fine tune the result set and prevent hallucination. We protected the data, and then we used everything we know about you to basically frame a certain experience that's going to be very pleasant for you to have. So that's the first example. I'm going to hand it over to Anil, who's going to talk about an operational improvement use case. And there's many other use cases that are relevant. These are just two.
Thanks, Bob. So Bob discussed a case that's centered around a client-facing example, and I would like to discuss a case study for an internal workflow enhancement. We specifically selected this particular case because it focused on business operations, process efficiency, and the effectiveness of internal workflows. This case study involves a client who specializes in crafting products. However, it's also relevant to any company that has a line of highly customizable and specialty products, where product matching is a key requirement, as these products work only with certain other products and certain applications. The company gets a lot of calls related to identifying the best type of needle that pairs with the particular style of thread and a special fabric. And in this case, the specifics of product matching and application details are often stored in customer service logs or SharePoint files. It's also tribal knowledge and not uncommon for users to be routed to some senior customer support staff who has the tribal knowledge. So a lot of time and effort spent trying to find that address that use case. We are building an information extraction and insights engine with GPT. This tool can scrape vast volumes of Word documents, PDF, SharePoint files, social media posts, because a lot of discussion happens around that as well, and customer service logs. And that extracts information relevant to product matching, and we put a file chatbot where customer support folks can ask very open-ended question, right? So compared to previous data analytics tool where they could ask very defined questions and the output was very narrow, here you can ask more open-ended questions and build up on the previous context. And the primary efficiency metrics we are keeping a close eye on is the cost per contact, which we expect will reduce significantly. And in addition to that, it's unlocking a whole set of new interesting use cases that this experimentation unlocks. So as the customer support folks save time from gathering data, they are now using chatbots to ask open-ended questions around what are the products that we keep getting interesting questions about. What are those questions? What are the new applications we can design around this product? You can apply the same to G&A. Imagine, finance staff asking for looking at anomalies in payments and collection. Think of operations staff looking at inventory logs to identify issues. So my key point is that as you start experimenting, you'll find more and more use cases as employees now move from gathering data to taking the role of a data scientist. And that's how you start improving process efficiency, internal workflows, and overall operation with generative AI. So with that, let me pass over to Jeffrey to close it out.
Bob and Neil, thank you very much for the use cases. I think what's truly interesting about them is, one is sort of a very customer-facing, outward-facing type use case. It's the one that maybe we're a little bit more familiar with from chatbots and just general customer service interactions, and it's sort of easy to conceptualize. But the underlying technology and the results and the capabilities and the ability to ask open-ended questions and get precise answers is really very compelling. And then in Neil's case is much more focused on sort of an internal use case and sort of reducing the challenge of data gathering and initial data organization and moving much more quickly to creating information and ultimately drawing insights. And really the third case that you heard was the development of our own internal AI tool, which has been, extremely enlightening, having used it on over 50 diligences. So we have our own experience in terms of what it's like to use and manage the results. A couple of the key questions we get is, when should we engage with AI? Where is when is the best time? And we really think the time is now. And, we would encourage you to look at your next diligence, your next VCP project, your next performance improvement project, and consider whether or not that is really an opportunity to engage, and consider whether or not AI could be a part of that value creation. All of you who are on the phone, your funds either have a specific vertical focus, they have a particular thesis, they have a particular industry focus. You all have playbooks. And what we're really encouraging you to do here is start to think of AI not as science fiction or alien, but it's something that you really want to embed in your standard processes, and a tool that you can bring to bear. Some of the other questions that we get is, well, this sounds great, but what sort of skill sets do I need? How will I sustain it? How will my portfolio companies sustain it? And the real answer, and Anil said it well, is your employees, once the technology is implemented, once it's actually set up, this concept of prompt engineering, the correct way to answer a question, loading additional information into the engine, learning how to get better answers out of it, these are employee end user skills. These are things that your teams can be taught how to do. So this is not something where it's a constant external lead of spend. So there's a real opportunity there. There are also a lot of questions around security and risk and data management. And I think that's where the Amplify proof of concept environment comes in. We know we have a highly secure environment, something that we know that we can deploy without fear of security breaches, data loss, information escaping out into the ether, etc. And then, the last question that we get is, how do I get started? How do we jump in? And I think what we've tried to do here is to show you how it can be used throughout the transaction lifecycle, both on a pre-act and post-act basis, how it can be used as part of VCP, etc. Let me see, it looks like we have one QA question here, which is great. The example provides focus mainly on improvising existing well-known processes, etc. Are the cases to create new products less technically feasible at the present? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Probably the best example of that, although one of the most challenging ones, is that generative AI is being used in some cases to create code. So it's actually initiating the development process through prompts. I think that there are all sorts of situations where it's creating new content. We've all seen deep fakes where generative AI has been used to create original artwork, original music, original content, even original fiction and jokes. So the ones that we're focusing on here are sort of the very practical, tactical, how you can use it now. But the actual potential is quite staggering. So what we hope you got out of today is that with A&M you have an experienced partner, one that is both consuming the technology and using it internally, as well as working with clients to purvey it externally. We have environment, we have tools, we have the ability to create proof of concept, and as always with A&M, you have an operational focus, a focus on cost, and a focus on value creation. So, we want to thank all of you for joining us today. For those of you who are looking for contact information, it is both on the screen, as well as you'll be receiving a recording of this webcast, as well as some additional materials in several days. So we wish you well. We look forward to hearing from you. And our most strong encouragement is, if you have not played with ChatGPT, please go get a free account and ask it some vexing questions. You might be shocked by the answers. Thank you for joining us.